Hello. Are you all able to hear me? Okay, I can see that a number of you have already joined us via Zoom. We are also live on Facebook. So if we don't have enough seats in the Zoom room, please, you can go directly via Facebook and you will still be able to catch us for this webinar. Thank you so much for those of you that have joined in on time. This is a webinar that we have all been waiting for. I've also been anxious so that I can share with you what we have kept for you for this webinar. So please invite your friends. We've sent through all the invitation to the Akaso Movement members via text message. We've sent via WhatsApp. You can also check your emails. You will be able to join us directly via Zoom conferencing for you to participate in the conversation. But if you are not able to join us via Zoom, I will ask you that you can go on our Facebook page, Mwalamoto. You will still be able to the conversation. So I'll just ask you to give me up before we get on. Technical team, am I very clear? Okay, thank you so much. So this is the Akaso webinar that we have all been waiting for. I think the Akaso movement has struck a lot of debate in the members of the public who have frowned at the movement, calling it a movement for stingy people. Personally, I've been harassed by other people that were thinking that I'm advocating for people being stingy or people not helping one another. So the purpose of this webinar, firstly, is to explain what the Akaso movement is all about. And then we can now discuss how you, the movement members, are going to benefit from this movement. So first and foremost, I'm going to introduce myself for those of you that might not be keen followers of our page and might not have much information about me. My name is Mwalamoto. I am the Chief Executive Officer and founder of Moto Holdings Limited, which is an investment and business advisory firm. We have investments in agriculture, in media, in technology, and also in consultancy. So Moto Holdings is registered and operating in Zambia, but we have subsidiary companies in Malawi, Kenya, Tanzania, and Rwanda. So Moto Holdings is also registered and operating in all these countries. As Moto Holdings, our main office is here in Lusaka, in Mwembeshe. That is where we're currently working from. Recently, we shared our beautiful head office, which is going to be unveiled to the public in February. So this is where we are operating from, and the office is going to be unveiled in February for everyone to now come in and access our services. So back to the Akaso movement. We have been running a series of social media engagements about financial discipline and frugality, which are branded in the Akaso movement, and talking about how young people and those that seek to pursue investment and financial excellency can pursue a frugal life, a life of financial discipline that will enable them to pursue their investment aspirations. So a brief introduction about the Akaso movement is, personally, as Mwalamoto, I've been an advocate of financial discipline for a very long time now. My financial discipline advocacy comes from my own experience as an entrepreneur and also as somebody who was born and raised in Africa, who understands the African perspective and attitude towards money. Growing up, I was raised in Mongu in Western Province I would say in a humble family because we were not rich. Again, I wouldn't claim that we were poor, but we were average family that is able to eat breakfast, lunch, and supper. But I've always had an ambition. I always had an ambition of starting out something big, something that can help me and also put me on the ladder of success, not just for myself, but also for my family and those that surround me. Doing that for somebody with a humble background like mine entailed that I had to pursue a life of frugality and financial discipline for me to be able to rationale the little resources that I had for me to build something that I was envisioning within my mind. So it's from a very early stage that I decided to pursue a life of frugality and financial discipline. So this was not entailed to punish myself, or not entailed for selfish motives of not wanting to share what I had with those around me, but it was entailed for me to be able to achieve my dreams, not just for myself, but even for the people that were living around me. So when I looked around, starting from my own family, yes, we were not poor, but at the same time, I was not comfortable with the life that we were living. There were other people that I looked at that were doing way better than us, which I felt that is the kind of life that I was supposed to live. So it is from this background that I decided to make up my mind at an early stage to make sure that I'm going to pursue a life that will enable me to afford the luxuries that I have always been admiring from a distance. But being somebody that came from a humble background, like I have already stated, it entailed that I needed to implement the highest level of financial discipline and frugality for me to be able to achieve those dreams. So this is what the Akaso movement is all about. It is just about assisting people from a humble background, people that are rising from nothing, to be able to pursue their dreams as they implement a life of frugality and financial discipline. Because you see, life is different from a young man who raises from his father's house and is given everything to go and start life with, than a young man who has to start everything from the scratch. For example, for myself, when I left my parents' house and came for work in Lusaka, the only thing that I left with from my mother's house was my blanket. Everything that I own in Lusaka today, from the vehicles, the infrastructure that we have, the businesses that we have established, I had to start everything from the scratch. So the Akaso movement is for young people like me, young people that will have to start everything from the scratch, and they seek to raise to the greatness in terms of the investment that they would want to pursue. So sometimes when people see me posting about the Akaso movement or pursuing a life of frugality, they think that it is advocating for people to be poor or advocating for people to deprive themselves of the resources that they have worked so much to attain, which is not the case. The Akaso movement is about assisting people that come from a humble background like me, people that don't have resources to start with or opportunities to be able to implement their dreams as they decide to pursue a culture of being frugal and being financially disciplined. So when you look within our community, when you look within the Zambian landscape itself, most of the advocacy is about reckless expenditure. When you go on social media, the most prominent social media influencers are those that are portraying a life of extravagance, a life of careless spending. And because of this, there is a lot of pressure within young people, especially in Zambia, to try and prove a point that they are successful through reckless expenditure. Unfortunately, this is what has stagnated our growth as young people, because people are not pursuing a life of frugality in order for them to implement their dreams, but rather they want to pursue a life of extravagant expenditure to portray a picture of success which they are not. So as Akaso movement, what we want is to normalize a culture of frugality as you are working towards your dream. It's to normalize a culture of financial discipline as you are working towards implementing your dream. Because one thing that has become open and clear is that societies that are pursuing a life of frugality or financial discipline are the ones that are doing well. When you go in Kamala right now, 90% of the shops are owned by Indians. When you look at the big corporations that we have, most of them are being managed or they are owned by the same Indians. When you go in town, it's the Lebanese that are running the show. And the most common trait that you will find in all these people is that they have got a high sense of financial discipline, and they are very frugal in how they spend their lives. Even when you come here in Africa, you look at the Rwandese economy, the Rwandese community itself. Right now, every corner shop in Zambia is owned or managed by Rwandese. When you look at the life that they live, it's a life of frugality. And I can tell you that in as much as those Rwandese live in a shop, in as much as those Rwandese don't put on the expensive suits that most of you are putting on, most of those Rwandese are way successful than you are. Look at the investment that they have. Look at the schools where they're taking their children. And as they become successful, you actually get to realize that they begin to enjoy their money. So the point is, when you look at the communities that are successful, these are communities that have got a culture of financial discipline and they are frugal in how they spend their money. The whole world right now is marveled at the kind of wealth that is built by the Jewish community. But when you look at the Jewish community and their attitude towards money, they have got a high sense of financial discipline and they pursue a life of frugality. Ladies and gentlemen, the reason why most of us, especially Africans, Zambians to be specific, are poor is because we have not pursued a life of financial discipline. We have not pursued a life of frugality. An average Zambian, when they get their first job, it is an opportunity for them to prove a point that they are successful. That is the reason why the first thing that a young person who gets a job is to wait for them to be confirmed. After they are confirmed, they'll rush to a bank, get a loan so they buy the latest vehicle and prove to their friends and their community that they are now doing well. Meet that same young person 5 years later. They are now struggling to pay back that loan. They are now struggling with rentals in the small house that they are renting. They are now married. They now have children and expenses have crumbled upon them. Life becomes hard for them. We can't develop as a nation if this is the kind of attitude that we are going to have. We can't develop as a nation if we are going to take pride in expenditure, but yet we don't take pride in investment. And definitely, for those of us that will have to start from the scratch, of which it is the majority of us Zambians, because most of us, we did not inherit anything from our parents. Most of us will have to build everything from the scratch on ourselves. So for those of us that have to start from the scratch, the life of frugality and financial discipline is what is going to push us to our dreams. And this is what the Akaso movement is all about. The Akaso movement is about assisting people that come from ordinary backgrounds to pursue a life of frugality and financial discipline as they seek to explore their dreams or to live their dream life. You see, when you go on social media, the advocacy is about reckless expenditure. And this is the reason why most young people are trapped into this kind of lifestyle. When I posted the article about me only spending a 500 kwacha on my girlfriend, it went viral because the narrative that has been pushed in the Zambian community is that a young man who is starting out life should take up the full responsibility or should now put a girlfriend that they are dating on their full budget at the expense of their own personal development, when that same girlfriend has their own parents and are people that are supposed to be responsible of them. So when that post was sent out there, it was met with a huge backlash from the public because it is not something that they are used of hearing. But definitely, if we are going to succeed as a people, those are the thoughts or the discussions that we need to begin having. Why should a young man who's just starting out life take up the responsibility of taking care of another man's child? Those are hard questions that we need to ask ourselves. Why should a young man who's starting out life be viewed as less of a man because they are not recklessly spending on another man's child? I recently posted about dating, and I was talking about going on a date with a young lady who decided to invite a friend, and I didn't budget for that person, and I only bought one plate for that. I was met with a serious backlash because of that. The reason is because our culture is not, we have not been built in such a way that we can have tough conversations. So why should a young man who has just budgeted for food for 2 people be inconvenienced to a point that they now have to start making emergency calls to borrow some money to finance a meal of someone whom they did not invite? But when we talk about that, it is something that everyone is going to frown at. Recently, I also posted about picking change from the offering plate. Oh, it was met with a huge backlash. Others called me fallen. Others called me that I'm now too proud. I'm no longer even respecting things of God. Ladies and gentlemen, what is the difference between picking change from the offering plate and changing your money before going to church? And where in the Bible are we prohibited from picking change from the offering plate? The issue here, it is a mindset. where we are made to think that we should not do this. But all this is backed up by traditions of men that are even backed up by scriptures. And sometimes exploitative men of God that want to reap from their members are going to present that as a taboo or something which is even a sin before God, but yet it is not backed by any kind of scripture. So all these things that I was sharing was deliberate so that we begin to have the difficult conversations which sometimes have prevented our own personal growth. I know of a number of young people that would have risen to become great people, only if they did not tie themselves to parasitic girlfriends that milked them of anything that they were generating during the time when they were starting work. I know of young people that have taken up responsibilities of ladies, and then later on they have been abandoned, and they are now recklessly living their lives because they have wasted their resources. So these are some of the things that we need to discuss. And the Akaso movement is about having this difficult conversation, especially when it relates to issues of money. Because you see, people want to say, no, it is just the money. Let us spend it anyhow. No, we can't spend it anyhow. Money is very important, and money has to be properly managed. The time that we are going to, the moment that we are going to come to terms on how we should effectively manage money as Africans, that is when we are going to attain financial freedom. Because you see, right now, because we don't want to openly discuss issues of money, anyone who seems to budget or spend their money strictly is tagged as Akaso. And because people don't want to carry this tag, they have to fit into the bandwagon of reckless expenditure. That is the reason why we are poor. That is the reason why there is very little progress that we are making. So if we don't challenge the status quo, there is no progress that we are going to make. Because you see, for a long time as Africans or as Zambians, we have pursued this life of reckless expenditure. We have pursued this life of spoon feeding. We have pursued this life of wanting to impress people at the expense of our own personal development. That is the reason why we are in this mess. That is the reason why we are leaving our parents' houses with nothing, without an inheritance, and we'll have to come and scout and start everything on the scratch for ourselves. Is this the kind of life that we want to continue living? Definitely for somebody like me, no. And I know a number of young people also that don't want to pursue this kind of life. But the problem is this culture that we still have, where anyone who's financially disciplined, who's planning for their resources, is perceived as workers. And people are scared of having this tag. So the Akaso movement is aimed at making people like me that want to pursue, that have pursued a life of frugality, for them to be successful, to be proud of that kind of a life. No one should make you feel less of a man because you have not taken up responsibilities which their father was supposed to take up. I'm going to say that unapologetically. No one should make you feel less of a man because you have decided not to recklessly spend your money, or because you have decided to stick to a budget. Because you see, when I was pursuing a life of frugality, when I decided to work in Mongo for the Citizens Economic Empowerment Commission for 2 years, and yet I was not driving, I was walking back and forth and paying for my school fees, people tagged me as Akaso. Even when I was going to church, there were comments that were being passed and the people were laughing. Some family members were also questioning me and saying, how come you're not recklessly spending? How come every time we call you, you are broke? How come you're not even buying a vehicle for yourself? You're putting on finished Salaula clothes. If I succumbed to that kind of pressure, I wouldn't have managed to lift myself from a diploma to move to a degree and even pursue a master. And there are a number of young people that are tempted into this kind of lifestyle. A young man who has just started working, he has got plans on how to maybe set up a business or how to build a house, and they are financially disciplined and sticking to that stuff. All over a sudden, everyone, even within their family and their community, is now pointing fingers at them, workers, and eventually they give in and give up on their dreams so that they can impress the people that are living around them. So the Akaso movement is aimed at challenging these kind of theories so that those that want to pursue success through a life of frugality and financial discipline should be comfortable, and they should be able to implement their dreams freely without them being blackmailed into being called Akaso or being stingy because they are deciding to pursue their dreams. Because you see, when we talk of Akaso, it has nothing to do with being stingy. Because you see, there are others who are saying that no, the Akaso movement is promoting stinginess. No, Akaso is not being stingy. When you go in our local language, there is a local term for being stingy. If you go in laws, you talk about a stingy person. A stingy person is called kutimana. It means mutio watibana. That's what we call a stingy person. And I know that in Bemba, even though my Bemba might not be very okay, a stingy person is called it must be Butani or something. It means that person is stingy. But when we are going to talk about financial discipline or a frugal person, do we have a term for that in our local language? In Lozi, a person who is frugal, who doesn't spend anyhow, is called lucato. That is the term that is referred to. And in the general term, must be in Bemba or generally in Nyanja, they will call it wakaso. It means it's somebody who's financially disciplined, who's frugal. Because you see, I have been called most of the time to be wakaso. And sometimes the people that have called me wakaso are people that have helped. Even people that have sometimes lived in my house, eating my food, they have called me wakaso. And you see, if I was stingy, I wouldn't be buying food and sharing it with you. But the fact that I was not recklessly spending according to their expectations at that point, they called me wakaso or lucato, of which in the actual sense, I was just being frugal or being financially disciplined. So anyone who wants to tag the Akaso movement to being stingy, they just want to hide behind the veil, because Akaso has got nothing to do with being stingy, but everything to do with being financially disciplined and being frugal. Because there are others who have commented and said, no, we need to change the Akaso movement because Akaso is not financial discipline. So our question that I'll ask you is, define financial discipline in Bemba, or define being frugal in Lozi or in Bemba. You don't have a definition for that. In the actual sense, it is what? The same lucato. Because the people that you refer to as lucato or Akaso are people that are financially disciplined or being frugal. So what we are advocating for Akaso movement is not about being stingy. We are not advocating for people not to help other people. I've personally helped a lot of people myself. Even right now, there are still a lot of people that I'm helping. But I don't spoon feed. That I'm going to tell you out. Everyone who's close to me knows that I don't release money anyhow. I'm not that type that you are going to call to borrow money so that you can take somebody else. No, that's not an emergency. If I'm going to borrow you money, I'm going to clearly ask what you are using that money for. If I'm going to give you money, I'm going to clearly ask you what you are going to use that money for, and there should be a plan for it. That is not being stingy. I just want you to be accountable for my resources that I've worked so hard for. And that is the attitude of people that are pursuing success. Because you see, any person who recklessly spends money, they don't understand the value of money. Or maybe they have not worked hard for that money. Any person who has worked hard for their money is going to spend it properly. And that is why even when you're going to do an analysis, even in your own family, everyone who is successful is tagged as being Akaso. Even in your community, look for any successful local businessman and find out what people are saying. Everyone is talking about them being what? Akaso. That one is stingy. That one is what? Right now, everybody is talking about our president being stingy. And the question that I'm asking myself is, the man has worked, it's his money. What makes you feel that you are entitled to his money? So the issue here is, it is clear that everyone who is successful has decided to be financially disciplined and being frugal. And ladies and gentlemen, if you want to be successful, you have to be frugal. You have to be financially disciplined. Because a life of reckless expenditure has never built anybody, but rather it has pushed a lot of people in poverty. A life of wanting to impress people at the expense of your own personal development has pushed a lot of people in poverty. And that is the reason why we are in this mess, most of us. So that is about the Akaso movement. And that is what we are promoting as the Akaso movement. Now, there have been a lot of misconception about the Akaso movement being against women. I know that the first post that I made when we talked about Akaso was about me not giving money to my girlfriend. But you see, even when I made that post, my wife read it, and she understands that that was not made to degrade women, but that was meant to state out the truth. Because whether we like it or not, it is not the responsibility of a boyfriend to take care of a girlfriend. That one, I'm still going to repeat it even now. It is not the responsibility of a girlfriend, of a boyfriend to take care of a girlfriend, because it is mere friendship. You see, as a young person, what you need to understand is that during the time when you are young, that is the time when you should best develop yourself. And that is the message that was being put out. Because what I was saying is, when I was deciding to build myself, when I was deciding to set up the things that you are seeing now, to build the Malamoto that you are seeing today, I decided to be frugal and financial discipline. And this extended even to my girlfriend that time, whom I clearly told to say, I have this plan, and this is the plan that I'm going to pursue. And she had to buy into that plan. There are others that did not buy into it. They left. Amen. They went. That was fine. But she decided to stick around. We worked together on that plan, and we have built what we have today. It has nothing to do with being against women, but rather it has everything to do with promoting a culture of independence, and at the same time promoting a culture of not being exploitative. Because you see, the continued perpetuating of a culture where young ladies who are not married to these young women, these young men have to depend on them and even make it mandatory to a point of even calling it a girlfriend allowance, is what is stagnating the growth of most young men. Because instead of focusing on their personal development and just looking at this relationship, which they have gotten into as mere friendship, it has now become a financial responsibility. To a point where those that refuse to take up that responsibility are pegged as bad people or stingy, or they are not men enough. So the post was meant to tell young men that they should not be degraded because they refuse to take up responsibility. And you see, when we talked of Kalombe, telling you that go and ask your father is not an insult. He is your father. He's the one who's responsible of you. So when we are telling young people or young ladies that if you want money or if you want a regular income, go and get a job. If you don't have a job, if you want money, call your father so that your father can assist you. How is that an insult? It's your father. He's the one who's supposed to be responsible of you. So when we talk of Kalombe, so it is not an insult. And nobody should take that as an offense because we are just stating out facts. Every person has got parents, and those parents are the ones that are responsible of you. So reminding you that when you have got needs, go and ask your parents is not an insult, and it is not anything that people should take offense in. Actually, what I will tell you is, when we talk of young ladies being independent in a relationship, it is actually for their own benefit. Because it is this culture of being too much dependent on young men or men that has made some of you young ladies find yourself in abusive relationships where you have been tied. I know of young ladies who have gotten so much from an abusive young man who they can clearly not see a future with, but they are stuck with them. They are scared of leaving because they know that there is so much that they have gotten from them. Just recently, we had a scandal in Mongo where a young man went and shot dead his girlfriend and even the parents to that girlfriend. Why? Because the girlfriend decided to cut the relationship. And because the young man had spent so much on this young lady, he told the young lady that me and you cannot end. I've already spent so much on you. If you decide to end this relationship, I'm going to kill you. And that young man killed that young lady. There are a number of such cases within our communities where young ladies have been tied in toxic relationships because they have gotten so much from them. So when we talk of Kalombe Bawiso, saying that go and ask from your father. What we are doing is protecting you as a young lady from an abusive young man who is going to hold you hostage through the resources that they have spent on you. Personally, it was difficult even for me to even raise a hand and slap my girlfriend. Where will I even start from? I never contributed anything towards her school fees. Even when I went to visit her, I didn't even buy her any food. So you think if such a girlfriend was to tell me it's over, where would I even get the courage to slap her? Where would I even get the courage to even abuse her in any way? She was independent in the whole relationship. And everything that we were doing, it was in a way that it allowed her to make an informed decision. At any time, she had the right to walk out of the relationship if she felt that I was not the right young man for her. So this is what actually enables you as a young lady to make an informed decision with the young man that you are dating. So when we talk about you being independent and you not getting so much or not getting anything from your boyfriend, it is for your own benefit as a young lady. Because we know that once you get too much, once he has spent so much, he's going to own you and there's no way that you are going to leave. Others are saying that no, the Akaso movement is going to start bringing hunger in homes. You see, when you look at me, I'm not hungry. Even when you look at me right now, I don't look like somebody who's starving. Even if you are to meet my wife, she's not starving. My wife is educated. My wife has a degree. My wife is doing a master's. We have a healthy baby that we are taking care of. We have a good and proper home. So the Akaso movement has got nothing to do with depriving duly married women of enjoying the wealth or the resources of their husbands. But it has everything to do with depriving opportunists in forms of girlfriends and side chicks of wanting to reap where they have not sown. That young man, you have not contributed anything towards his school fee. What makes you think that you are obliged to his resources? To a point where you are angry when somebody talks about them not spending on you. It is not their responsibility to spend on you. And I clearly talked about issues of sex. Because you see, some women want to think that the fact that they are providing sex, then they should be given money in return. Yes, if you have gone commercial. That is why it was clear that if you have gone commercial, let it be stated so that even when the young man is dealing with you, they'll deal with you as a commercial service provider and they'll fully utilize the services that they have paid for. But if we are going to talk about love, then let it be clear that if I'm giving you love, you also bring back love. And that is how it is. Immediately that I'm giving you love or you are giving sex and then it is now money, that is now commercial. And the best term to refer to that is prostitution. That is a fact, which is clear. So as Akaso movement, we are not against women. As Akaso movement, we are not for the idea of women, of men starving their families. Because even myself, I provide for my family. And I do that with dignity and pride. My wife does not lack anything. My wife does not ask for anything. From the day that I married my wife and brought her in my house, she became my responsibility. She does not call the father to ask for anything. I have taken full responsibility of her as my wife. That is the reason why I've even made the initiative to let her go and pursue her master's. That is the reason why I've built a good home for her where she's living with my children. Even everything that we own, she's a shareholder, she works for Motor Holdings, and she's a director there. So it has nothing to do with depriving newly married women of the resources of their husbands. So these are the misconceptions that I thought should be cleared out so that all of us that are in the movement can understand. Because you see, ladies and gentlemen, it is not a secret that most of us are coming from poverty-stricken backgrounds. It is not a secret that most of us are coming from a background where we were struggling. The average Zambian is coming from a background where their parents could not even afford to take them to a good private school. Most of us were educated in public schools where we're highly congested. Most of us, for those of us that went to the university, it was because we were on government sponsorship. There are very few Zambians that could afford to go to UNZA, CBU, or any university without sponsorship. So it is clear that we are coming from a background where we are struggling. And I will tell you that with such kind of a background, raising above the ladder of success to either build a successful business or establish a successful career would require a high level of financial discipline for you to be able to do that. This is what I told myself. I told myself, I'm not going to continue living this kind of life that we are living. This life of me going to Imwiko Basic School or going to Kambule, where we were sitting in a class of over 101 teacher. The teacher doesn't even know a number of us in the class. You see? Where I had to walk into an exam to go and do testing for starch and whatever. But yet I've never even done those experiments because the school did not have ingredients. Is this the kind of life that we want to hand over to our children? Definitely for me, it's no. I told myself that I am not going to hand over this kind of life to the next generation that are going to come from me. Because you see, at every stage of a generation, there is a role that the people in that generation has to play in uplifting the lineage of that family. I always tell this to my siblings because you see, my great-grandfather was a villager who was living in Nalolo doing nothing. But my grandfather at that time managed to push himself and he became a teacher. At that time, that was success for him. He was a don. Everybody knew about Mr. Moto. When you go to Kanja right now, our village is popular and everybody knows about it. Why? Because the man was a teacher and he had the cows. And that man managed to educate his children. My father, who was amongst his children, decided to even live there and came to Notek, where he came to train as a mechanical engineer. After he became a mechanical engineer, he was also a don. He was working for Zambian Airways. He was working for cooperative society. That was success for him. Everyone in Mongu knew Mr. Moto as a don, and he was doing well at the level that he was that time. Right now, for me to be comfortable with the life of Mr. Moto, where we are living in a house in Imwiko. Yes, it was a house that he has built, but we are living in Imwiko, a substandard compound, and my children are going to government schools. It is not going to be right, because that was the standard of Mr. Moto at that time. The standard where I am now requires me that I should raise the generation that I am in or the lineage of Mr. Moto to something that is of higher standard. And this requires me to be highly financially disciplined. Because first and foremost, when I left Mr. Moto's house, the only thing that I left him was a blanket and advice from him. And now that I have to walk around the corridors of Lusaka and now compete with other people's children whose parents had already uplifted their lineage, the children of the HHs of this world, the children of the GBMs of this world, you see, the children of the Mikaliles of this world, children that are coming from a background of privilege, and they already have a backbone on where to step on. It requires me to be highly financially disciplined and frugal. Because those have capital to get from their parents. I didn't have any. Those have got advice from their parents about business. The only advice that I got from my parents is about life, how to take care of myself. My parents didn't even know how to register a company because they never owned one. My parents didn't know about processing financial statements and having them audited. They didn't know about investments, the European Union and the African Union that we are dealing with now. It required me to raise above the bar of my parents so that I should be able to uplift our lineage to what it is today. And this entailed a culture of financial discipline and frugality. This is what the Akaso movement is all about. Because when I came here in Lusaka with only a blanket and decided to rent a 2-bedroom house in Baulen so that I now begin life and build my empire, I was competing with those that had a backbone. those that had the resources, the connection, and the wisdom from their parents who are already exposed in business. It entailed that I need to add in more and sacrifice more. So the Akaso movement is for people like me. I want to emphasize this because probably there are some of you that already come from a culture of privilege, to a point that when I'm going to talk about starting my life in a Vitz, you will say, why are you suffering? You see, to me, driving a Vitz at that time was not suffering. I was happening because where I come from, we had no car. You see? When I talk about living in Bowling, while I was working for the British Council, others were saying, why were you making yourself suffer? To me, living in Bowling was not suffering. Me, I was born and raised in Imwiko. Ask anyone who comes from Imwiko what kind of a compound it is. So even when I decided to go in Bowling so that I implement my dreams, it's because I understood that. So as Akaso movement, when we speak about a life of frugality, probably it might not be a message for some of you that already come from a background of privilege, because you don't understand what it means to rise from ashes to become big in a community like ours. So the message might be or is for those that have to rise from the ashes like some of us. Those that are leaving their parents' house with only advice and a blanket, and they'll have to find their way out. Those are the ones that are going to appreciate this Akaso movement. Because for those of us from that background, climbing the ladder of success requires a high level of financial discipline. It requires a life of frugality. I will not leave Mongu to come to Lusaka and get a job and just spend on a slave queen. No. I came to Lusaka for serious business. I've escaped Mongu. Do you know what it means to grow up in Imwiko? 90% of the people that I went with to school, right now, they have not even stepped foot in college. 90% of them, they are just a few. Even right, that's why you see, when I even hear others who are saying, no, let's now organize a reunion as the Roma girls or as whatever. You see, some of us can't even organize a reunion for our school. Where are you going to find them? Which reunion? If right now to organize the reunion of the people I went with at Imwiko or at Mongu Primaries, they are not there. Even on Facebook, there are few. Those of us that have managed to make it, either working in the civil service or either we have managed to build businesses, it is because we decided to be exceptional and put in extra for us to reach those levels. So when we talk about a life of frugality, when we talk about financial discipline, it's because we understand where we are coming from. And if you are such a one, my brother, who's coming from a background like mine, a background where you have to start everything from the scratch and you have got this high dream, I can tell you that the Akaso movement is the only way for you. I will tell you that. If you are a young man with parents who have not left you an inheritance, and one day you want to sit at the helm of a business that you have honed and built, you can't do that through reckless expenditure. You can't do that through carelessly spending on women, on girlfriends that are not your responsibility. So this is what the Akaso movement is talking about. I think the message is clear for those of you that did not understand it, so that you can now understand it from the point of view of us who are first things serious to make change in our lives, and at the same time also be able to change the lives of our future generations. So why the Akaso movement? Why have I decided to come up with this movement? What is the inspiration behind this? First thing, we want to cultivate a culture of frugality. Our culture as Zambians or Africans in general is about reckless expenditure. It is a culture where people are glorified for spending money recklessly. That is why we have big buyers. We call them big buyers by inflating their ego. In the actual sense, they are recklessly spenders. And most of these end up being destitute in their adult life. The only thing that you hear is now just stories. All of us have got such kind of adults in our community. The only thing they are talking about is no issue. During those days of NIE, during those days of UBZ, what, they are sharing stories of their past glory. Look at them right now, nothing. Some of these are our parents. We are hearing stories of how they were once big. We see pictures of them of how they were once powerful. The reason is because they didn't pursue a life of frugality. They decided to recklessly spend money anyhow. And that is what has landed them in poverty, to a point where right now they are just a shadow of what they used to be. So the first principle is that we want to cultivate a culture of frugality. After that, we want to foster financial discipline. People should not be ashamed to plan for their money. You see, I once went to ShopRite with a certain lady, which I wanted to date that time. And I went with a list of the things that I was buying. Every time that I would buy, I would tick. I would buy, I would tick. And this lady told me, you have got Akaso. Even buying things in ShopRite, you have to be ticking with like a book. You are embarrassing me. How will people look at us? There is nothing wrong with you planning on how to spend your money when you enter ShopRite. That is why some of you end up embarrassing yourself in the queue, on the queue. You reach the queue with a big trolley. Again, you start leaving something. No, I think that one, don't put it, remove it. I think this one, don't put it. Why did you pick it if you can't pay for it? It is because we feel that moving around with a paper in ShopRite, ticking and ticking, then you'll be looked at as somebody who's stingy or somebody who doesn't have money. There's nothing wrong with planning for your resources. So as Akaso Movement, we want to foster a culture of financial discipline. I talked about me having a financial plan for my life. You see, when I asked my girlfriend out and I laid out the financial plan to her, it was a 5-year strategic. Even up to now, I still have such kind of plans. And you see, if you are not on that plan, I'm not spending on it unless it's an emergency. That's the culture that we need to have. The culture where when people get paid, everything is spent there and then is what has dragged us into poverty. The culture of thinking that the fact that you now have a gratuity that has landed, now you have to recklessly spend and everybody has to know it, is the reason why we are in this mess. So what we want is to foster a culture of financial discipline where people will not be ashamed to plan for their resources, where people will begin planning for their resources when they are still young. Because you see, there is this myth amongst young people of thinking that, no, I'm going to invest when I'm older. You see, it's easier to invest when you are young because you don't have responsibilities. At the time when I began working at 19, it was easier for me to sponsor myself for a degree while I'm also while I'm finalizing my degree or my ACCA qualification. I also enrolled for a master's because I had no other responsibilities apart from myself. And of course, a few other responsibilities within the family from my siblings, which I had to contribute. At that time, life was easier. Right now that I have a wife and a child that I need to feed, responsibilities have risen. You see, the mistake which most young people are making right now is to think that the time when they are still single and young is time to recklessly spend their money. So the cycle in the average Zambian youth is that when they are going to get their first job, of which most of them, they are earning less than 10,000. You are extremely lucky if you are earning anything above 10,000 in Zambia and it's your first job. Majority, they are earning 5 pin, 6 pin, 4 pin if they are earning much. That is the first job. And then you find that these people that are earning this much, immediately they are confirmed. What do they want to do? Latest BMW, Mark X, Mark what. They are now buying such kind of vehicles that are bought on what? On money that are coming from what? From a loan. What that means is that the next 5 years of their lives, they will spend it servicing a loan. And because they are earning just 6,000 and they are now being cut almost half of their money, 3,000 is the only thing they are taking home. Their whole progress has been brought on a standstill because of that. What that means now is that they now begin to have responsibilities. Maybe they decide to get married. By the time they finish paying their loan and they decide to get married, they don't even have money to sponsor a wedding, another loan. Now to do what? To finance the wedding. After they have financed the wedding, it means the next 5 years now they are doing what? They are paying the loan for the wedding that they had. By the time the 5 years is done, again, maybe they have 2 or 3 children. That is when they realize that now they have to upgrade their qualifications. That's when they realize that they don't have a house. They now want to build a house. Now even their firstborn child has to start baby class. They are now filled with so many responsibilities. At that point, you stop living, you just start existing. Floating from one month to the other, just trying to make ends meet. Life becomes difficult. That is why I'm telling you about investing now when you are still young, before you have such kind of responsibilities. So what we want is to foster a culture of financial discipline, especially amongst the young people. Because if we continue on this trend of recklessly spending our youth on extravagant expenditure, we are going to have a continuous generation of destitute adults that own nothing. Our third thing is that we want to encourage investments. Most of us Zambians don't own anything. Most of us Zambians have got nothing to leave even for our children when we die. And you see, sometimes to you, to a point where we have been saying, this won't matter in heaven. Here on earth, you can just pray and pray so that you make it to heaven, then life will become easy. My brother, heaven is not our home. When God created the man, he placed them here on earth in the Garden of Eden. The plan of going to heaven only came about after 1,000 years. After those 1,000 years, we are coming back here on earth to continue. So if you think you can be ready, when we come back here, my brother, life continues. You need to find a job. You need to do business for you to take care of yourself. So if you think you are going to be just over-righteous here now and think that when you go to heaven, then you have escaped from your problems, well and good for 1,000 years. After 1,000 years, we are coming back here again and life continues. So we need to foster a culture of investments, a culture where we plan for our lives. We can't continue in the trajectory of only handing over poverty to our children. We need to foster this culture where we begin to invest. We need to foster a culture of building business. Aren't you ashamed that we successful big Zambian conglomerates? The biggest by foreigners. What we have done as Zambians, we are just stuck as SMEs. 40 years, you are still an SME. No, we can't continue in that trajectory. So what we want is to foster a culture of investments where we are going to pursue and invest so that we live a better life. Fourth, we want to motivate young people to understand that a culture of frugality is nothing to be ashamed of. The average successful person out there only wants to portray an extravagant lifestyle now that they are successful. That is the challenge which we have. And that's the reason why I have been posting about all those issues that I'm talking about. To tell a young person out there who is in the situation where I was 5 years ago, that there is nothing wrong with being frugal and being financially disciplined, so that they are motivated to continue on their path of financial discipline. Let no one lie to you that they are a self-made successful person and they're extravagant spending. That's a lie. Those that become successful through extravagant spending, it's either they managed to steal or either they got an inheritance. Those of us that had to build everything from the scratch without an inheritance in a decent manner where we didn't have to defraud anyone or steal from anyone, had to be financially disciplined and be frugal. So what we want is to share much more stories like these ones, so that young people out there that are seeking to be successful, that are seeking to be excellent, can understand that there is nothing wrong with being financially disciplined and being frugal, but rather it is a way of success. I can still say that Akaso is the key to success because it is what has built me to what I am today. I'm not extremely successful, but definitely I'm not poor. I'm not extremely successful, but definitely I'm not where I am today. I'm not where I was a few years ago. The life that I'm living light now is a life that I just used to see and admire. But through Akaso, through strict financial discipline and frugality, today I can confidently call myself an owner of a business that is employing people, that is changing lives. I own properties and I'm taking care of myself. And even people with families are taking care of their families through the businesses that I own. That is what we mean by Akaso is the key to success. We are not talking about being stingy. We are talking about being frugal and being financially disciplined as a way of achieving your dreams. Now, what is the future of the Akaso movement? There are others that think that the Akaso movement is just a social media frenzy that is going to die out. In case you think that we are here to stay, this movement is going to grow. This movement will continue existing, and we have huge plans for this. So if your business or your activities are threatened by the Akaso movement, my sister, start looking for an alternative source of income. Because what we are going to do, we are going to intensify. We will build an army of young people that are highly financially disciplined and frugal, that will not recklessly spend on anything. So we have a good plan about the Akaso movement. Very soon we'll start unveiling most of this plan, and you will see that we mean business. It is something that I've planned. It is something that I'm already bringing big partners on that we can bring on board so that we are able to build this. The first thing is we'll be launching an Akaso wallet, a virtual wallet that will be used to save money, a virtual wallet that will be used for strict budgeting, a wallet which is going to be integrated with banking systems, mobile money systems, and users will be able to transact across different banking systems across Africa. And it is also going to be used for savings. This wallet will also be used for the purpose of fundraising. We have an aggressive fundraising strategy that we are putting in place to support young people with brilliant ideas, good businesses, provide them with funding through these wallets, and monitor how they are going to manage these resources. A big initiative that will be launched early next year, and very soon we'll be announcing it. We already have a technical team that is in place programming this wallet from the scratch. It is something that we own as Motor Holdings and something that is going to be entirely owned and managed by us. So we mean business when we talk about the Akaso movement. Early next year, the second big thing that we'll have is we are going to have the Akaso Movement General Assembly at Mulungushi International Conference Center. We are already setting up the free event where we are going to invite all of you, our members, those that will be able to make it. We invite good speakers. This is where we are even going to unveil the wallet. This is where we are also going to launch our investment fund, which we are already bringing on board financiers that are going to come in. Last and not the least, we are launching the investment preparation program. Some of you might have already gained admission into this program. This is a game changer, brothers and sisters. You see, one thing that I have observed that is lacking in most young people or Zambian businesses is proper business development in how their businesses have been structured. That is the reason that we have businesses that have been existing for years, but yet there is very little growth that they have made. I always tell people that there's nothing wrong with running a Kantemba, but there is everything wrong with running a Kantemba for 10 years. No. There's nothing wrong with running a small stand for vegetables, but there's everything wrong with doing that continuously for 30 years. It means you're not growing, because business is designed to grow. So through the investment preparation program, we want to mentor young people and provide them with professional business development support for free that will enable them to gain access to external investments. I've shared several times on social media how I have managed to build my business through external investments. This has been done through proper business development. We have proper business plan. We have clear company profiles. We have proper financial statements and financial reports audited that we are able to present to these financiers. We have clear policies on how our business stands. That is why we are able to attract partners like the African Development Bank. We are able to attract partners like the African Union, the European Union, the Zambia National Commercial Bank. Different big institutions have pumped money in our businesses, and we're implementing projects with them now, because our business has been structured in such a way that it can gain the trust and the credibility from this kind of institutions. This is what we want to build with the SMEs that will get into our investment preparation program. We want to support them so that they can also have access to the opportunities that have built us to become what we are today. I have never been, I've never pretended to say that we have built what we have built today because we have just been reinvesting and pushing and pushing. I'm not going to lie that to you. I'm not that kind of an entrepreneur who will tell you that, no, I started my restaurant with a rice. No, I've built my business to what it has become today through external investments. Big companies, big institutions have invested millions into this business. That is why today we have got good infrastructure, we have good equipment, we have good IT infrastructure, which is enabling us to run different programs and engage with huge institutions. This is possible if there is proper business development that is provided to an enterprise. And I understand that some of the SMEs are not able to hire professionals at this point. I was privileged because I came from a corporate background. So even when I got into start my business, I understood how to structure proper policies, business plans, financial reporting issues. But for most SMEs, we have young people with the zeal that want to succeed, but they don't have the technical capacities or technical knowledge on how to penetrate the corporate world and sit on the table of opportunities. What we want to do through the investment preparation program is to provide such kind of young people. Because you see, entrepreneurship zeal will enable you to start a business, but business competence will enable you to grow that business. Most businesses are stagnant because the owners only have the entrepreneurship zeal. They don't have the technical ways on how to manage a business. You see, you can't build a business like Zambi with entrepreneurship zeal. You can't build a business like Yalelo with entrepreneurship zeal. It requires business competence to understand how the corporate world works, to know how to formulate policies, engaging with the right partners. That is when you'll be able to build businesses to that kind of stage. That is what we want to do through the investment preparation program, so that young people with entrepreneurship zeal can be equipped with technical support that will enable them to gain access to opportunities that have built us as Motor Holdings. It's a free program. 1,000 entrepreneurs or SMEs are going to be trained across 5 countries. This includes 200 from Zambia, 200 from Malawi, 200 from Kenya, 200 from Tanzania, and 200 from Rwanda. 1,000 of them are going to get into the investment preparation program, which is for free entirely. They'll be assisted with a business plan, a company profile, trained on business development, assisted to formulate financial reports for those that have already been operating. We are also going to connect them to auditors that can provide them with audited financial statements if they will need to have them audited. After that, we'll move with them to the fundraising stage. We are already mobilizing a pool of financiers that are going to be registered on our financiers portal, who these entrepreneurs will now be able to engage directly, and they're able to apply for funding from these financiers. This is a game changer in the SME space, because there is very little of this kind of program that are provided to SMEs. Most of the programs that we have for SMEs are barely motivation, where we'll come and talk about how we suffered, how we did this. But definitely what I will tell you is every entrepreneur's story is different. What we want is not to provide inspirational stories that are going to excite you. What we want is to provide you with professional business development support that will enable you to build your business, gain access to investment, and grow it to where you would want it to be. This is what the investment preparation program is all about. I must mention that the investment preparation program is being done in partnership with Facebook or Meta, which has invested $45,000 to facilitate the rolling out of this initiative to the 1,000 entrepreneurs that are going to participate in. We are currently in discussion with a number of other big organizations that are definitely going to come on board and finance this program. So if you have not yet gained access to the program, we're actually in discussion on increasing the numbers of those that would want to participate in. As a member of the Akaso movement and you clicked yes, you have a business. Some of you might have already been called by our business development support and told that you can also proceed and join the investment preparation program. This is a good opportunity for you that I would really encourage you to pursue. Thank you so much for joining us for this webinar. What I would tell you is that you own your path as an individual. And the that you to determine the kind of person that you are going to be at CEEC at 19 years old. Everybody who looked at me was thinking that whatever that I was talking about, I was just daydreaming. Whatever that I was planning about, I was just daydreaming. There are things that cannot be implemented. But I can tell you, perseverance, through strict discipline, I have found myself in high places where I never imagined that I was going to be. I find myself doing bigger things that I never imagined that I'm going to do. That can be your life also if you decide to pursue such kind of a life. Discipline, very, very important. Everyone can work hard, but what has brought down a number of people that succeed is because their lives. You should be disciplined in all angles. Your resources, your money should be properly planned for, properly spent for. No one should blackmail you into recklessly spending on them. You don't owe them anything. You should be disciplined on how you are living your life, taking care of your body. Those are important things that you need to implement. I look forward to more of such kind of engagements with a number of you, and I look forward to getting to see most of you joining investment preparation program, a good opportunity that we are bringing for you so that you gain access to investment opportunities. There are some of you that had contacted us in the past about business planning. Unfortunately, we couldn't do that for free at that time because we need to meet our operational expenses. But through this opportunity under the investment preparation program, you have access to professional business development support for free, and you don't have to pay for it. So join the program and find ways that you can grow your business. Thank you very much for joining us for this webinar, and we look forward to engaging more with you. And remember, Akaso is the key to success. Thank you.